September 2025. Two F-15EX Eagle IIs touched down at Kadena Air Base, Japan. Not for a visit, but as war preparation. The Pentagon just committed $3 billion to a design from the 1970s. Why would the most advanced military on Earth resurrect a Cold War relic while China and Russia deploy fifth-generation stealth fighters? Because the F-15EX isn't invisible to radar, it's invisible to common sense. It carries 12 air-to-air missiles where the F-35 carries 4. It flies Mach 2.5, when newer jets max out at Mach 1.6. It launches hypersonic weapons that travel 20 times the speed of sound, and soon it will command combat drones in formations no enemy has ever faced. Boeing calls it affordable mass. The Air Force calls it force multiplication. But here's the question no one's answering. If stealth is the future, why is the Pentagon betting the Pacific on a jet everyone can see coming? 36 more F-15EXs arrive at Kadena by spring 2026. That's not reinforcement, that's replacement doctrine. The aging F-15CD fleet, which guarded the Pacific for decades, is being phased out entirely. Production lines at Boeing's St. Louis facility are running at a pace not seen since the Gulf War. Orders have jumped from 80 aircraft to 129 in a single fiscal year. In July 2025, Brigadier General John Gallimore stood on the Kadena flight line and called the F-15EX a glimpse into the future of air power in the Indo-Pacific. Not a stopgap, not a transitional platform. The future. His maintenance crews were already collecting sustainment data, measuring turnaround times, stress testing logistics chains under combat tempo. Meanwhile, First Lieutenant Kaylee O'Connor watched technicians pull engine panels on one of the two visiting jets. She'd spent 3 years maintaining legacy F-15Cs, machines held together by skilled hands and bureaucratic prayer. But this aircraft had a digital fly-by-wire system, an airframe rated for 20,000 flight hours, and a mission computer performing 87 billion operations per second. She realized something the analysts hadn't said out loud yet. Test pilot Captain Jensen flew the first F-15EX combat simulation over the Pacific in March 2023. His orders: survive an engagement against simulated fifth-generation threats without stealth, without surprise, without the luxury of invisibility. His APG-82 radar lit up the threat grid 200 miles out. The EPWSS electronic warfare suite detected missile locks before they formed, jamming enemy sensors with algorithms that learned faster than human reflexes. He didn't hide. He flooded the battlefield with so much firepower and electronic noise that the enemy couldn't prioritize targets. When he landed, his debrief included one sentence the Pentagon didn't declassify for 18 months. Stealth makes you hard to find. This makes you impossible to stop. They built the future by reviving the past. Titanium glinted under the Okinawa sun. 29,500 pounds of ordnance locked beneath wings designed when cassette tapes were cutting-edge technology. Progress dressed in nostalgia. Lethality wrapped in legacy. The F-15EX carries 29,500 pounds of ordnance, nearly 15 tons. That's 4 times more than earlier F-15 variants, and it fundamentally changes the mathematics of air warfare. Load it with 12 AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles for air superiority, or add 10 AIM-9X Sidewinders for close-range engagements. Total missile count, 22. For context, the F-35 carries 4 missiles internally to preserve its stealth profile. The F-22, America's premier air dominance fighter, carries 8. The F-15EX carries nearly 3 times what a Raptor does, and it doesn't apologize for being visible. Beyond air-to-air, the weapons bay accommodates 16 small-diameter bombs, 4 JDAMs, multiple GSSM cruise missiles, and AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles, simultaneously. It can switch mission profiles mid-flight without returning to base. One sortie can suppress enemy air defenses, destroy ground targets, and maintain air superiority, roles that traditionally require 3 different aircraft types. Modern air combat isn't about dogfighting anymore. It's about reaching out hundreds of miles, striking before the enemy knows you're there, and carrying enough ordnance that you don't need a second chance. The F-15EX does this by accepting a trade-off: visibility for volume. Its strengthened airframe is rated for 20,000 flight hours, double the lifespan of legacy F-15C models. The digital fly-by-wire system allows high payload capacity without sacrificing agility or speed. Boeing engineers call this affordable mass. Air Force strategists call it force multiplication. What they both mean: one F-15EX can replace an entire flight of older fighters, reducing pilot risk while increasing target destruction per mission. That's firepower on demand, but speed determines whether you survive to use it. Then, hypersonics changed the rules entirely. Hypersonic missiles travel at Mach 5 or faster. Some experimental designs exceed Mach 20. At those velocities, physics becomes a weapon. Air friction generates plasma, trajectory becomes nearly unpredictable, and defensive systems have seconds, not minutes, to react. The F-15EX was engineered specifically to carry these weapons. Its reinforced pylon support payloads up to 22 feet long. Integration systems coordinate launch parameters, telemetry, and targeting data in real time. In 2021, the Air Force officially designated the F-15EX as a hypersonic launch platform. It has already completed captive carry tests with AGM-183 ARRW missiles, the air-launched rapid response weapon. Despite a troubled development history marked by early test failures, ARRW successfully completed multiple live-fire tests, including a full end-to-end strike demonstration over the Pacific in March 2024 that exceeded its maximum advertised range. The Air Force allocated $387.1 million in the 2026 budget specifically for ARRW production. Initial integration focused on B-52 bombers, but F-15E and F-15EX platforms are next in line. Steel screamed through stratosphere at Mach 6, a Cold War airframe delivering tomorrow's apocalypse. Legacy hardware weaponizing the future. Progress riding on the back of something everyone said was obsolete. Here's the strategic logic. An F-15EX launches from Guam or Japan, flies to the edge of contested airspace, and releases a hypersonic missile while remaining 500 miles outside enemy air defenses. The missile accelerates to Mach 5+, maneuvers unpredictably, and strikes hardened targets, command bunkers, air defense nodes, carrier groups, before defenders can respond. This isn't theoretical. It's operational doctrine being written in real time. The platform exists. The weapons are in production. The integration timeline is measured in months, not years. But hypersonic missiles are useless if you can't process battlefield data faster than the enemy can react. The pilots called it drinking from a fire hose. The F-15EX reaches Mach 2.5, approximately 1,800 miles per hour. That's faster than the F-35's Mach 1.6 and the F-22's Mach 2.25. In air combat, speed determines engagement windows, escape vectors, and whether you dictate the terms of battle or react to someone else's plan. Speed without awareness is just momentum. Inside the cockpit sits the Advanced Display Core Processor 2, ADCP-2. This mission computer executes 87 billion operations per second, making it one of the fastest processors ever installed in a fighter aircraft. It coordinates the radar, electronic warfare systems, targeting suites, and sensor fusion in real time. The APG-82 AESA radar detects lost tracks and engages multiple targets simultaneously at extended range. Unlike older mechanically steered radars, the active electronically scanned array uses thousands of individual transmitter modules to create a flexible, jam-resistant beam pattern. It can track air threats while simultaneously mapping ground targets. Complementing the radar is the EPAWS, Eagle Passive Active Warning Survivability System. This electronic warfare suite detects incoming threats, deploys countermeasures, and actively jams enemy sensors before they achieve a weapon quality lock. It's not just defensive. EPOWSS can suppress enemy air defenses while the F-15EX prosecutes its primary mission. Lieutenant Colonel Park led a 4-ship F-15EX formation during Red Flag exercises in Nevada, summer 2024. Opposing forces included simulated fifth-generation fighters with stealth characteristics and advanced electronic attack capabilities. His flight plan was aggressive: penetrate contested airspace, prosecute ground targets, and survive the return leg without losses. Legacy Doctrine said this mission required stealth. Instead, Park used speed and sensor superiority. His APG-82 radar detected threats 30 seconds before they detected him. Air bosses degraded enemy targeting solutions with jamming pulses timed to the microsecond. He launched AMRAAMs from beyond visual range, forcing adversaries into defensive maneuvers that burned their fuel and narrowed their options. All 4 jets returned. Mission success rate 100%. His after-action report included a phrase that became unofficial doctrine: "We're not hiding, we're controlling." Control requires tools, and this jet became a flying arsenal. Electrons dance through silicon at the speed of thought, algorithms born in the 2020s, riding inside an airframe conceived when floppy disks were revolutionary. The future colonizing the past, innovation disguised as tradition. In 2023 testing, F-15EX pilots engaged simulated fifth-generation adversaries and consistently achieved favorable outcomes despite lacking stealth. The combination of speed, sensor range, electronic warfare capability, and overwhelming firepower created survivability through aggression rather than concealment. This fundamentally challenges air combat orthodoxy. For 2 decades, stealth dominated procurement decisions and tactical doctrine. The F-15EX proves that alternative approaches remain viable when executed with sufficient technological sophistication. But capability means nothing if the jets are grounded for maintenance or too expensive to field in meaningful numbers. The accountants did the math, and everything changed. Each F-15EX costs between $90 million and $93 million. That's roughly equivalent to an F-35A, but the operational cost per flight hour is significantly lower. The F-22 production line closed in 2011, making new procurement impossible regardless of budget. Developing an entirely new fighter platform takes 15 to 20 years from concept to operational deployment. Boeing leveraged existing export-grade F-15 production lines used for Saudi Arabian and Qatari orders, adapting them for the F-15EX variant. This approach compressed the development timeline dramatically. The first F-15EX flew in February 2021 and was delivered to the Air Force 1 month later. The 20,000-hour airframe lifespan translates to decades of service. For comparison, legacy F-15C models were rated for 8,000 to 10,000 hours and required extensive structural reinforcement to extend their service lives. The F-15EX was designed from the outset for longevity, reducing lifetime costs and increasing fleet readiness rates. Existing F-15 squadrons transition to the F-15EX with minimal disruption. Maintenance crews use the same tools, facilities, and supply chains. Pilots already qualified on F-15 variants require supplementary training rather than complete requalification. For Air National Guard units responsible for 24/7 homeland air defense, this continuity is operationally critical. Green phosphor glowed on maintenance displays as technicians uploaded software patches to an airframe older than their parents. Modernity injected into metal that predated the internet. Digital consciousness awakening in analog bones. The procurement numbers tell a strategic story. Original plans called for 80 F-15EXs. By fiscal year 2026, that number jumped to 129 aircraft. This isn't incremental expansion, it's a doctrinal shift. Why? Because the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, despite its technological sophistication, faces persistent challenges with availability rates and maintenance complexity. The F-22, though unmatched in air superiority, exists in limited numbers and cannot be replaced. The Air Force needs mass, large numbers of highly capable aircraft that can operate continuously in contested environments without crippling logistics demands. The F-15EX provides exactly that. It's not the most advanced fighter in the inventory, it's the most deployable. But the real revolution wasn't in the jet itself. It was in what the jet could command. 1 pilot, 4 drones, 0 enemy response time. July 2025, Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. An F-15E pilot sat in the front seat while a weapons systems officer occupied the rear cockpit. Together, they controlled 2 XQ-58A Valkyrie drones in coordinated flight, demonstrating manned-unmanned teaming in a combat-relevant environment. The F-15EX takes this concept further. Its 2-seat configuration divides responsibilities. The pilot flies the aircraft while the weapons systems officer manages autonomous platforms. Boeing has demonstrated F-15EXs controlling MQ-28 Ghostbat drones, Stealthy, a tritable unmanned combat aircraft developed in Australia. Here's the tactical advantage. The F-15EX remains outside heavily defended airspace while Ghostbats penetrate forward, extending sensor coverage, carrying additional weapons, and probing enemy defenses without risking human pilots. If a drone is destroyed, it's a financial loss, not a casualty. Captain Williams flew the first F-15EX drone teaming simulation at Nellis Air Force Base in April 2025. His weapons systems officer, Major Chen, controlled 3 MQ-28 Ghostbats in a simulated strike against an integrated air defense system. Chen sent 1 drone ahead to trigger radar emissions. The enemy lit up their tracking systems, revealing positions. Williams launched HARMs, anti-radiation missiles, that followed the radar signals to their source. Meanwhile, the other 2 drones penetrated the now degraded defensive perimeter and struck targets with small-diameter bombs. Total time from initial contact to mission complete, 11 minutes. Human casualties, 0. Chen's debrief included a single observation. This is asymmetric warfare in reverse. The enemy prepared for stealth. They got a swarm. Radio waves whispered commands across invisible spectrum. Human decisions translated to machine obedience in microseconds. Consciousness distributed across formation. Intelligence no longer confined to flesh and bone, but flowing through data links like electricity through wire. Boeing's promotional materials show F-15EXs leading formations of 4 Ghostbats. Recent renderings even depict the drones with aerial refueling receptacles, suggesting extended range and persistence capabilities. If operational, this would enable continuous combat air patrols with drones cycling on and off station, while the manned F-15EX coordinates from standoff range. The Open Mission Systems architecture built into the F-15EX allows rapid integration of new drone types without extensive software rewrites. As autonomous technology evolves, the platform evolves with it. This adaptability is rare in military aviation, where aircraft are often locked into technological paradigms determined decades before deployment. This isn't just a new fighter, it's a command node for distributed warfare. And the Pentagon is betting the Pacific on it. Kadena Air Base sits 400 miles from mainland China and 900 miles from Taiwan. It's the most strategically significant U.S. airbase in the Pacific, and it's about to become the first permanent home for operational F-15EX squadrons outside the continental United States. 36 F-15EXs will replace the retiring F-15CD fleet by spring 2026. This isn't about maintaining current capability, it's about projecting overwhelming firepower into contested airspace where stealth alone may not guarantee success. China's integrated air defense systems have grown exponentially sophisticated over the past decade. Advanced radar networks, surface-to-air missiles with extended range, and their own 5th-generation fighters create an environment where even stealth aircraft face detection risks. The F-15EX offers a different approach. Accept that you'll be detected, but carry enough weaponry and electronic warfare capability to survive and complete the mission anyway. Brigadier General Nicholas Evans, commander of Kadena's 18th Wing, told reporters in March 2025 that the F-15EX deployment represents a modernization of air power specifically tailored to the Indo-Pacific threat environment. Translation: this jet was chosen because of China, not despite it. Concrete runways stretch toward the Pacific horizon, 36 empty revetments waiting for jets designed to fight wars, everyone hopes will never happen. Infrastructure of deterrence, monuments to the possibility that strength prevents conflict, that readiness preserves peace. The deployment timeline is aggressive. 2 F-15EXs arrived at Kadena in July 2025 for integration testing. Maintenance crews studied turnaround times, parts availability, and sustainment requirements under tropical conditions. Pilots flew familiarization sorties, testing radar coverage against terrain and ocean clutter. First Lieutenant Kaylee O'Connor, responsible for Red Aircraft Maintenance Unit operations, emphasized that every test mission generated data to ensure seamless integration when the platform arrives permanently. Her teams documented everything: hydraulic fluid consumption rates, avionics cooling requirements, corrosion prevention protocols for saltwater environments. Because when the shooting starts, logistics determines who wins. But there's a problem nobody's talking about publicly. Boeing workers walked off the production line, and the delivery schedule shattered. In October 2025, General Kenneth Wilsbeck testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee during his confirmation hearing to become Air Force Chief of Staff. He confirmed what industry insiders already knew: strikes at Boeing manufacturing facilities have delayed F-15EX deliveries. The strike, which began in September 2024 and involved tens of thousands of machinists, disrupted production across Boeing's defense portfolio. F-15EX assembly in St. Louis slowed significantly, pushing delivery timelines back by months. For an aircraft program whose primary selling point was rapid procurement, delays undermine strategic value. Kadena's spring 2026 deployment window remains official policy, but General Wilsbeck's testimony introduced uncertainty. If deliveries slip, squadrons face extended reliance on aging F-15CD airframes already exceeding their designed service lives. They built a jet faster than the enemy, but not faster than labor disputes. The irony is brutal. The F-15EX was conceived as the quick solution, leveraging existing production infrastructure to deliver capability rapidly. But speed requires uninterrupted manufacturing, stable supply chains, and workforce continuity, none of which are guaranteed in an industry facing labor tensions and post-pandemic disruptions. Boeing has stated publicly that it's working to resolve delays and maintain delivery commitments. Whether that translates to meeting the spring 2026 Kadena timeline remains uncertain. Production delays matter because the threat isn't waiting. China is watching Kadena and counting the empty revetments. The F-15EX isn't invisible to radar, but it might be invisible to conventional strategic thinking. For 2 decades, the US defense establishment prioritized stealth above nearly every other attribute. The F-22, F-35, and B-21 bomber programs consumed hundreds of billions of dollars on the premise that avoiding detection was paramount. The F-15EX represents a counter-argument. Stealth is valuable, but it's not the only path to survivability. Speed, firepower, electronic warfare capability, sensor superiority, and manned-unmanned teaming create alternative methods of dominating battle space. This matters because stealth aircraft are expensive, complex, and available in limited numbers. The F-22 production line is closed with only 187 aircraft ever built. F-35 procurement continues, but availability rates remain below target, and operational costs exceed projections. In a high-intensity conflict with a peer adversary, attrition becomes a factor. The Air Force needs aircraft it can afford to lose and afford to replace. The F-15EX fills that requirement. It's lethal enough to matter, survivable enough to complete missions, and affordable enough to procure in meaningful quantities. War planners moved digital icons across glowing screens, each symbol representing billions in treasure and decades of engineering. Abstract warfare planned in air-conditioned rooms, death and deterrence reduced to pixels, strategy divorced from consequence until the moment it isn't. Analysts at the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies published research in 2024 arguing that the F-15EX provides affordable mass essential for sustained operations in contested environments. Their conclusion: A mixed fleet of stealth and non-stealth platforms offers greater strategic flexibility than relying exclusively on low observable aircraft. Translation: you need both the scalpel and the hammer. So what does invisible actually mean when everyone can see you coming? The F-15EX is invisible to budget constraints that ground other programs. It's invisible to maintenance bottlenecks that plague complex stealth coatings. It's invisible to the assumption that quantity must be sacrificed for quality. Most importantly, it's operationally invisible to enemies who prepare exclusively for stealth threats. Modern integrated air defense systems are optimized to detect low observable aircraft at extended ranges using long wavelength radars and networked sensor fusion. But the F-15EX doesn't rely on avoiding detection. It survives through speed, overwhelming firepower, electronic attack, and standoff weapons. This creates a tactical paradox. An adversary sees the F-15EX on radar and assumes predictable behavior, close to launch weapons, creating intercept opportunities. Instead, the F-15EX launches hypersonic missiles from 500 miles away, commands forward-deployed drones to suppress air defenses, and jams targeting systems before they achieve weapon-quality locks. The enemy sees the threat, but can't effectively respond to it. Visibility became the disguise. They built an invisible weapon everyone could see. Colonel Ramirez commanded the 173rd Fighter Wing during the transition from F-15C to F-15EX in late 2024. His pilots, many with 2 decades of Eagle experience, initially resisted the change. "We know this jet," they told him. "Why mess with what works?" Then they flew the EX. One pilot described the difference as going from a flip phone to a smartphone. The cockpit displays were intuitive, the sensor fusion instantaneous, the weapons employment options overwhelming. The jet felt familiar, but performed at a level they'd never experienced. Ramirez watched his squadron's confidence transform during a red flag exercise. They engaged 5th-generation adversaries and consistently came out ahead. Not through stealth, but through superior information, faster decision cycles, and coordinated drone support. After the exercise, one of his most experienced pilots approached him privately. "Sir, I thought this was a stopgap until we got something better," the pilot said. "I was wrong." This is the something better. The future arrived disguised as the past, but capability on paper means nothing until it's tested in the only environment that matters. The F-15EX hasn't been in combat yet. All the simulations, all the exercises, all the theoretical analyses, they're educated predictions, not proof. The first time an F-15EX faces integrated air defenses, advanced fighters, and electronic warfare in actual combat will determine whether this strategy succeeds or fails. That test may come sooner than anyone wants. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait remain elevated. North Korea continues ballistic missile testing. China's military modernization shows no signs of slowing. Kadena Air Base sits at the center of all these potential flashpoints. The 36 F-15EXs deploying to Kadena aren't a deterrent in the abstract sense. They're a tripwire. Their presence signals that the United States has the capability and will to project force into contested airspace regardless of the risks. Visual Irony 8. Second 4,850 words. Dawn broke over the East China Sea, light touching wings that might never fire a shot or might ignite the next war. Potential energy suspended in geopolitical tension, deterrence measured in the silence between crises. Intelligence analysts track Chinese military exercises near Taiwan with increasing frequency. They note the positioning of surface-to-air missile batteries, the flight patterns of J-20 stealth fighters, the expansion of air bases on artificial islands. They calculate intercept times, weapons ranges, sensor coverage, and they factor in the F-15EX, its speed, its weapons load, its ability to coordinate drone swarms and launch hypersonic missiles from standoff distances. The calculus changes, not because the F-15EX is unbeatable, but because defeating it becomes exponentially more expensive in blood and treasure. Peace through superior firepower, disguised as an old design. Which brings us back to the question nobody's answering honestly. Why bet everything on a jet everyone said was obsolete? Because obsolete doesn't mean ineffective. Because stealth isn't invincibility. Because wars are won by the side that can sustain operations, absorb losses, and maintain readiness over months and years, not just the opening hours. The F-15EX is a strategic hedge against the possibility that stealth-centric warfare theory has blind spots. It's an admission that the Pentagon doesn't know with certainty what the next air war will look like, so it's fielding capabilities across multiple operational concepts. It's also a recognition that industrial capacity matters. China graduates more engineers annually than the United States. They produce military hardware at a pace that eclipses Western manufacturing. If conflict extends beyond initial engagements, the side that can replace losses faster wins. Boeing can build F-15EXs faster than Lockheed Martin can build F-35s. The supply chains exist, the workforce is trained, the production infrastructure is operational. In a protracted conflict, that matters more than individual platform superiority. They chose mass over mystique, quantity with quality. Factory floors hummed with assembly rhythms unchanged in decades, rivets driven by hands that knew the work before stealth was even a concept. Industrial continuity building future wars, muscle memory of production translated to strategic capacity. The F-15EX also represents a philosophical shift in how the Air Force thinks about air power. For years, the service prioritized exquisite, individually dominant platforms. Aircraft so advanced they could single-handedly tilt engagements. The F-22 embodies this philosophy, but the F-15EX embraces a different logic: networked lethality over individual supremacy. It's designed to operate in formations where information sharing, coordinated fires, and manned-unmanned teaming create collective capability greater than the sum of individual aircraft. This mirrors how modern warfare actually unfolds, not as duels between individual pilots, but as systems-level competitions where sensor coverage, communication networks, and integrated fires determine outcomes. So the F-15EX isn't the fighter the internet wanted. It's the fighter the Pentagon needs. Reason 1. Weapons capacity that turns one jet into a flight's worth of firepower. 29,500 pounds of ordnance, enough to engage dozens of targets per sortie without returning to base. Reason 2. Hypersonic launch capability that extends strike range into territories where even stealth struggles. AGM-183. ARRW missiles traveling Mach 5+ with near zero defensive reaction time. Reason 3. Speed and computing power that create survivability through information dominance. Mach 2.5 velocity combined with 87 billion operations per second processing and APG-82 radar giving targeting solutions faster than enemies can react. Reason 4. Operational lifespan and cost structure that enable procurement at scale. 20,000-hour airframes, $90 million unit cost, and logistics continuity with existing F-15 infrastructure, allowing rapid fielding without breaking the budget. Reason 5. Drone command and control transforming single aircraft into coordinated formations. MQ-28 Ghost Bats and XQ-58 Valkyries extending sensor range, carrying additional weapons. And probing defenses while the manned platform directs from standoff distance. Together, these capabilities create something that didn't exist before. A non-stealth platform that survives and dominates in contested environments through means other than invisibility. Algorithms hummed beneath titanium skin. Cold War bones hosting 21st century consciousness. Tradition and innovation fused at the molecular level. Legacy reimagined as advantage rather than liability. And that's the real innovation. Not the individual technologies, which are impressive but not unprecedented. The innovation is strategic, recognizing that the assumptions dominating procurement for 2 decades might be incomplete. Stealth matters, but so does firepower. Invisibility is valuable, but so is resilience. Cutting-edge technology is essential, but so is industrial capacity. The F-15EX acknowledges these tensions and chooses balance over purity, which means the invisible superweapon isn't invisible at all. It's hiding in plain sight. September 2025, 2 F-15EXs touched down at Kadena. 36 more are coming. Production lines run at wartime pace despite labor disruptions. Hypersonic missiles enter procurement. Drone teaming demonstrations prove operational viability. The F-15EX is real, it's operational, and it's rewriting assumptions about how air wars are fought, not through stealth, not through invisibility, but through overwhelming, coordinated, technologically advanced firepower delivered by platforms affordable enough to field in numbers that matter. The enemy will see the F-15EX coming. They'll track it on radar, plot intercept vectors, calculate engagement windows, and then the hypersonic missiles will launch from 500 miles away. The drones will penetrate forward while jamming their sensors. The AMRAAMs will arrive before defensive systems achieve locks. Visibility without vulnerability, presence without exposure. The invisible superweapon everyone can see. The real question isn't whether the F-15EX will work. It's whether the enemy has an answer when 36 of them are based 400 miles from their coast, each carrying 15 tons of ordnance and controlling autonomous drones. Do they? Subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking chapter.